Welcome everyone to our 17th pod. This one took a long time coming. We were on a streak of a weekly podcast, and then all of a sudden, end some breaks hit our podcast, and then we had to take a break of a month and a half, pretty much, right,
Yep.
Akshan?
Yeah, that's right.
All because of his exams. I mean, I was always there. I'm always there for pods, but then he was busy, and so were you able to keep track of AI while you were having your exams, or you were completely focused on
Oh
your
yeah,
exams?
absolutely. I was able to keep track. I mean, this is kind of more important, right? This is what happens, right?
So the marks will tell us what were you more focused on, right? Whether it was the papers or the AI or both. We'll get to know very soon. So you've been looking at AI. I mean, at least for last week or so, you've been back and you've been looking at AI. So let's get into our pod and I'll let you take the lead on that.
Oh yeah. So first of all, a lot has happened over these past one and a half months. It's insane what all has happened, and actually we'll just go through a gist of what all has happened and what we'll cover in this podcast. So Anthropic ships twice in 12 days and warns AI might soon improve itself 5 days before releasing its most powerful model that we'll be discussing in the first segment. Musk loses a $150 billion lawsuit on a technicality, then files the biggest IPO in history. A company burns $500 million, $500 million on Claude in 1 month. A GPT 5.6 string flashes through Codex logs. Apple bolts Gemini into Siri. And Argentina offers AI agents a corporate passport. Google cuts prices. Microsoft cuts the cord. Nvidia counts the money.
Okay.
One through line. Everyone repriced the frontier this month.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there has been so much happening. I mean, I was kind of craving to have our pod. I was kind of waiting for you to come back, and we could have our pod. So that's it. So within a month and a half, so many models, so much has happened across the board. There is so much to cover, but we'll try and keep this one at least the most important ones that happened over the last month and a half. We'll try and focus our energies only on more on the latest ones and probably a little bit on what happened in the past, right? So that's how we'll take it forward. So let's dive in.
Yeah, and let's start with the most important company of 21st century, and Anthropic has been on fire since January. We've been saying that in every single podcast, right? So 1.5 weeks ago, Anthropic released their flagship model, Opus 4.8. Really happy with it because they didn't increase the price at all. It was at the same. It was offered at the same price as Opus 4.7 with additional features, of course. A couple days after that, they released a paper that mentioned recursive self-improvement. And on 9th of June is the flagship model, Fable 5, which is the third version of Mythos, we can say.
Well, absolutely. So earlier this year, they came out with a big, not a big release, but a big news that Mythos is out and it's going to eat up every software in terms of cybersecurity. It's finding holes in every single software. So that was a big news, and everybody wanted to get their hands on Mythos. But Mythos was released under Project Glasswing to a lot of bigger companies so that they can patch their vulnerabilities and everything. Day before yesterday, they released a tamed version, like Akshan called it, a tamed version of Mythos, which is called Fable, and released under 5. So up until now, it was going 4x versions for Opus and Sonnet. Now they've released 5 with Fable, right? And this is what they've said is, all the guardrails have been built into it, but it's the same class model, which is Mythos. And this is the first time they've come out and told that, it's a 10 trillion kind of token model, right? So which is absolutely huge, right? And the pricing on this, obviously, we were expecting a lot higher price, but this one is very, very controlled in terms of it's just double the Mythos, double the Opus pricing, right?
That's
And so basically it's like $10 per million tokens
input tokens and $50 per million output tokens.
Yeah, there are so many numbers that I keep getting confused. So basically that's what the costing is. And for now, they've given it access to all the subscribers with Plus and Pro or whatever tiers you've got. Everybody has access to that. So access to this. So that what that means is you get to play with it, you get to figure out how powerful this model is, and then they take it away from you so that you can pay a token based pricing, which is going to be exorbitant. I mean, we'll talk about pricing. There's so much happening on the pricing side, but yeah, so you're getting a preview sort of for Mythos, for Fable and Mythos, and then later on you'll be paying through the nose for this model. But that's what it is. But this is like a huge model, right?
Absolutely, and everyone gets a free taste of this model till 22nd of January.
Not free taste. I mean, you have
everyone who has the Anthropic plans gets a taste till 22nd January. And there was something very interesting announced for everyone who is using Fable 5, and that is that every single input, prompt, and output result will be shared with Anthropic. You cannot deny.
Yeah. So basically, up until now, what they said was any API usage, any usage through Claude Code and all, would not be retained on their servers for even like 1 day. It will be a 0-day kind of thing, right? But with Fable, they will at least have 30 days of log retention there, because they want to go through and ensure that nobody's trying to jailbreak it, or nobody's trying to use it for biohazards or vulnerability and things like that. So that's where, so some of the corporates that had that kind of tie up with Anthropic, where they would not store their logs and all, they are getting 401 kind of error. They're not able to access Fable at all. So that's what the biggest change for enterprise is, whether they experiment with it or not, because ultimately they don't want their logs to be maintained on Anthropic servers.
Absolutely, and I believe that you were, I think, using Fable 5
when you got hit. So we were kind of hoping that because Mythos is going to come out someday, or somebody is going to use it. So we wanted to run Fable to ensure that there are no vulnerabilities in our software, right? And we tried to run Fable to so what we did was we initially run Opus 4.8 to give us all the vulnerabilities that it could find, and then we ran Fable on the same software just to see what extra things Fable is able to find out. And that's where we got a notice from Anthropic that this is not allowed. Maybe you're doing the right thing, but this is not. So they downgraded that query to Opus 4.8, and they did not run that query. So you can see that on the screen. We'll put it on the screen, the warning that we got. So that's what it is. So they're not letting Fable figure out those security vulnerabilities at all, but that's okay. I mean, the model itself is pretty good. I mean, there have been some use cases that I've been trying with all different models for the last 5-6 months. I've been building a software which was at a point where there were some features that I've been trying to implement with all the models, and I've not been able to succeed with that, which is what I tried with Fable yesterday. Up to a good extent, it has kind of done it, but there is still, today morning it gave up on that and said, beyond this, it's not possible. We'll have to try a different route. So basically, Fable was able to make some progress, was able to make some, headway into the problem that I had. But otherwise, it looks like a very good model. I mean, a lot of times, the output that it emits is very concise, and I'm not able to make sense of that output at all. It is so information dense, it is so packed with information that it's so difficult to read it and understand it in 1 go or 2 goes or 3 goes. I mean, I tried it like 5 different times, and then I had to ask it to explain it further, like you're explaining to a 15-year kid or somebody. That's where I was able to understand what it's saying. Otherwise, it's so information dense that, it's difficult to understand the output from Fable. That's what my first reaction. Initially, I thought, what happened? I'm not able to understand what it's saying. So I was kind of, I thought there's something wrong. Maybe I'm not paying full attention. But then prompts after prompts, the result that was coming out was so dense, was so packed with information, that then I had to tell it to, dumb it down a little bit for me so that I can understand what you're saying.
Oh yeah, I mean, I played around with Fable 5 as well. We'll discuss more of what we did at the end.
Sure.
But what I realized was my involvement became even less. It was doing a lot of the work on its own, figuring things out. That's what we liked about Anthropic models. But this was on another level.
Oh, absolutely. This is like Opus on steroids. I mean, so one time we discussed, right? Even when you're in jail, Opus does your things. Now, Fable would do it even if you're not around. I mean, whatever happens to you, Fable would continue to do things for you. So it keeps looking for solutions, and it keeps on doing things. Yeah, so that's where it is. It's pretty cheap. I mean, for $10, $50, it's not very highly priced. It's very intelligent model. It's just that you have to find the right kind of problem for it to use this model. Otherwise, Opus is pretty good.
And the thing is, with Opus 4.8 release, they had the feature where it could basically deploy multiple sub-agents, hundreds. I think it was a very huge number of sub-agents.
Yeah.
And now, because these models can make their own decisions, I actually tasked Fable 5 with finding something on the internet and just storing the information in a concise way. I came back after 20 minutes and my entire limit was exhausted.
Yeah.
It had spawned over 150 sub-agents and they were each using it was a huge
Absolutely.
It was insane.
This feature was pretty much introduced with Opus 4.8.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
we realized it. And I was kind of working on a project where I needed multiple agents. So I gave it to Opus 4.8 like a couple of weeks back, and then it ran out of credits. And which is where when Fable released yesterday, I was kind of, I told Akshun, you can start playing with it, but then be cautious that, you don't run through the limits. And he kind of, like he said, he wanted to search something on internet and figure out some things. He let it loose, and that kind of ate up the 5-hour window within
20 minutes, 23 minutes,
right?
yeah.
So the moment I started trying it, it was already out of tokens, and that's where I was like, oh wow, so that's not a good thing. So we've discussed Fable, but obviously within last like 12 days earlier, Opus 4.8 was released, which came out with a lot of new features on Claude Claude code, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it has, you can specify how much thinking it should do and how much
the effort thinking is now you can select it on your own instead of just going with what the model selects for you. Yeah. And along with that, it also came with spawning multiple sub-agents. That's right, yeah.
Absolutely. So what I have kind of observed, I don't know, I could be wrong as well, they've silently dropped Sonnet. Mm-hmm. Sonnet after 4.6 has not been released. Everybody was expecting, after Opus 4.7 or 4.8, another Sonnet version would come, but Sonnet never came, right?
Yeah.
And now we have Opus 4.8, which is $5 input and $25 output, and then we have Fable, which is 10 and 50. So the price of intelligence is increasing, but obviously this is like, we are almost, for me, Fable almost looks like super intelligence. It talks in the way that it's hard to understand for me. So that's where it's a difficult model to deal with. But then, Opus 4.8 is pretty good. The only gripe I had with Opus 4.8 versus GPT 5.5 was Opus 4.8 is very talkative, very verbose. It gives you so much output that you have to, it keeps repeating the same thing in the output multiple times. So that was the gripe I had with Opus 4.8. But then Fable 5 is concise, but then it's super packed with information. So that's where,
that's what I've noticed with Fable 5 as well. So when I do some work and at the end, when it's done, suppose a particular task, I would just ask a bunch of questions that I want to know about the task Fable has done. So earlier with Opus, I would just write all of these questions in one line, answer these one by one. But with Fable, when I do that, the paragraph size stays same. And it's so difficult for me to understand. So I have to ask every single question individually.
Absolutely.
That's what
I've been doing since yesterday. That's become my go-to phrase. So it's kind of learned already that now it has to dumb its answers down for me so that I can understand. So it's already automatically doing it. But just prior to Fable 5 release, like Akshan said in the intro itself, Anthropic came out with a paper which talked about recursive self-improvement.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it looks like Anthropic is almost looking at that. So Anthropic has been playing with Mythos level model for last 6 months, right? And people across the board from OpenAI and from Anthropic are talking about loop-based programming now, which is where they are getting to a point. It seems like where recursive self-improvement would become very possible, and that's what the paper talked about, and all of a sudden this model was released. So Anthropic is doing a lot of awesome work since January this year, and they've released so many models, and people are using GPT 5.5 and they claim that it's equally good or if not better than 4.8.
Yeah.
But for me, Opus 4.8 is the go-to model. I have been relying on it for all my coding tasks pretty much.
Absolutely. And I mean, Anthropic has released a lot of things, they've leaked a lot of things, but Anthropic is always the center of conversation.
Absolutely. And Anthropic is saying that almost 80% of all code that's being written in the company
Is
is
generated
being
with-
written by
yeah, Claude
these
code,
models,
yeah.
right? Claude code. So that's where they've come from, 10%, 20%, 30%. Now it's almost up to 80%.
Up to 80%, yeah.
Which is with all of this happened within the last 1 year. And a lot of it, I mean, although we'll talk about a lot of this in our experiment section, but a lot of these we are able to kind of relate to, we are able to use that. So that's
Moving over to the most controversial company, if not the company, the most controversial CEO in the AI space, going over to Grok or XAI. So we all know this because this is a pretty old news at this point. But Elon Musk lost the $150 billion case, the OpenAI XAI lawsuit, where Elon Musk was claiming that OpenAI became a for-profit company on some immoral grounds. It turns out a lot of things came to light that at some point even Elon was
in favor of becoming
yeah.
a for-profit company. That was there, and one of the very interesting things that came out during that course of litigation and all was Elon Musk under oath said that they kind of distilled OpenAI's models to train their own models, right?
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of interesting things came out of that
Trial,
litigation
yeah.
or trial, right? But the thing was that the case could not stand even for a couple hours in the court. Within like a couple hours, it was unanimously decided that Elon Musk took a little too long to bring this to the court, and the case was dismissed. But Elon Musk, I mean, we don't know what the real intentions were behind this lawsuit. Maybe it was to slow down OpenAI. Maybe it was for the right things that we don't know. But then chances are they'll go back and appeal this judgment. But yeah, for now at least Sam Altman has his some worries sorted. He would be breathing a sigh of relief.
Oh yeah,
right
absolutely.
now.
This has been going on for a couple years at this
Oh, yeah,
point.
yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. So that's one thing sorted. I mean, at least so all of these companies are looking at an IPO. So for OpenAI, at least one thing is sorted. They can file for an IPO right now. So yeah, that's a good thing for them. Not so good thing for Musk, but that doesn't stop him. He is jumping onto an IPO. He's doing the biggest IPO ever, $1.75 trillion
Wow.
kind of an IPO coming through. Tomorrow on 12th June, it will be most likely on the stock market. You can trade on XAI or SpaceX or whatever you want to call it. So it's going to be out there tomorrow.
Yes, and SpaceX is being listed as an AI company, so that's a very, very interesting thing as well.
Yep, and the symbol probably is SPCX, right? So it's more of SpaceX, which XAI and everything is. So we'll for the first time get to know what financials are happening inside of XAI. Those things would come out quickly. That's what it's going to be interesting. But this is like a huge IPO. $1.75 trillion, and let's see how investors react to it. We've seen recently stock market tumbling in the US, so it's going to be really interesting to watch. Tomorrow being the Friday last working day of the week, that will be very interesting.
Yes, and along with that, a lot of money is being funneled into XAI or SpaceX as well by their competitors. So that's a very, very interesting thing as well. Elon lost a major lawsuit, and he's gaining at this other end, basically.
So a new term has been coined, right? Frenemy. I mean, I heard it for the first time. I don't know maybe if it was a term already there or not.
Oh, yeah,
so
it existed.
Enemy of an enemy is my friend. That's where Elon Musk is kind of renting out his, Colossus 1 cluster to Anthropic so that they can beat OpenAI. So I mean, this is like, this is going to be a huge movie if they release one around, this what's happening in the AI arena right now. So basically, Colossus 1 has completely been rented out to Anthropic. Anthropic is using that. They've, like we already discussed, they've come out with huge models. They've given some, extra credits as well for us to use and stuff, right? So that's happening. And alongside, now Musk is renting out his GPUs to Google as well,
Yes,
right? So it's
that's
almost $2.1 billion, is it, per month?
$2.2 billion per month, yes.
That's what he's getting out of the GPUs that he's bought. So that could be a good thing, but that could be a bad thing as well. What that means is his models are not working well. The models from XAI are not able to use those GPUs. So that's where, so currently they're running a discount as well on XAI's models and stuff, right? Their super or whatever their highest tier was, $300 has come down to $100, right?
Yes.
So that's what that one is. So models not doing good, but for now he's able to. So he spent almost $4 billion on Colossus One.
Yes,
right?
3 point
And-
something. Yeah.
Right, and he's able to rent it out for $1.25 billion per month.
That is just to Anthropic. Another $900 million to
Yeah, but
Google as well.
the Colossus One has completely been
Yeah,
rented out
they
to
rented out by
Anthropic, right?
Anthropic.
So something that you built for $4 billion, you are able to rent out for $1.25 billion. That's like huge, right? Within 6
1
months, you'll be
quarter,
profitable
yeah.
on that, right? So that, yeah. So AI has got so much money flowing all across that it's difficult to know who's customer, how's the money flowing, how is it. So a lot of people are thinking about how AI is the money's moving in circles from Nvidia to OpenAI to, let's say, go back to Anthropic and things like that. So it's very interesting what's happening right now.
Absolutely.
So basically, I think that's pretty much out on.
I actually tried the Super Grok there because the plan price had dropped, so we decided to get that. And with Super Grok, you get the capability of generating
Videos.
generating AI generated videos.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I tried their AI models for generating code. I was not super impressed. So I was kind of, but for such cheap price, if you're getting to generate videos, that is going to be, I mean, that was very good deal, right? So we bought into it, and Akshan tried a lot of, video generation, and that turned out reasonably well, right?
Yes, it was pretty, it was a very interesting experience. We'll share the link to the video where I shared my experience. And
oh, absolutely. I mean, earlier we tried with VO3 and Sora 2 and stuff, right? Sora 2 has been killed, I think. So basically, it is much better than those. There is still scope for improvement. Seed Dance, I think, is still much better than XAI's videos, but then it's improving. It's getting better. That's where it is. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it that we wanted to cover on XAI and Elon Musk.
Yes, that's right.
So then moving on to the next one, which
is the $500 million spent on token bill by an anonymous company. So this is a very interesting story as well.
So of late, we've been hearing about token maxing.
Yes, that's right.
Token maxing, if you guys are not aware, token maxing is maximize the use of tokens. And that's how some of the companies were measuring the productivity of their employees. Now that's almost analogous, at least to my mind, as to measuring the number of lines of codes that you've written. You don't really care what the functionality is. You don't really care about how much effective that code is. It's just that I'm counting the number of lines. If somebody writes that in 100 lines or million lines, I think that million lines is better than 100 lines, which is absurd way of measuring it, and which is what was happening with tokens as well. People were gamifying as to how many tokens I can consume, which is absurd. I mean, with any, I don't know. I mean, from what angle would that be productive? But anyways, so token maxing kind of led to, like Akshan said, there was a company that did not have cap. So they let their engineers use as much as they wanted without knowing how much it will cost them. And they ended up spending almost $1 billion, $500 million within a month to Anthropic. So that was like crazy, right? I mean, although the name is not there, people don't know which company it was, whether it's, a true story or not, because it was covered very widely, but there's no, name of the company as to who spent that much money. Maybe they got some refund, I don't know. But yeah, so if it was $500 million for a company, that's like huge, right? But apart from this one, a lot of other companies have been saying, for example, Uber and for example, Microsoft, they kind of are no longer using Anthropic, right? Uber seems to have kind of exhausted their annual budget within a month, 3-4 months, right?
A quarter, yeah.
A quarter, right? So that's where we know that Anthropic models are very expensive. The moment you start using it from per token usage basis, they become super expensive, right? It's only the plans that they've got with which we are able to afford those models. Otherwise, it's within. So I tried it like within an hour or so. I was almost at $20-25 kind of usage, right? So that's where it becomes exorbitantly expensive very quickly. So that's what's been happening. People have been trying to use up until now. Token maxing was a term, and people were maximizing the usage of token. I'm assuming going forward, people would be more intelligible. I'm hoping that's a word about using their tokens. Basically, if you've got a task which is easy enough, you go to a smaller model. At least don't go to Fable 5, right, or Opus 4.8. Go to maybe Sonnet if it still works, right? But take your difficult tasks to Opus 4.8, GPT 5.5, and very difficult tasks to Fable 5 kind of things. So that's where you should be able to kind of, and those Chinese models, they are like super cheap. I did a video around that where I compared same task running on all different models, where same task was completed by Kimi K 2.5, 2.6 and GLM 5.1 for 70 cents. That task was done by Opus 4.5 or 6 at that point for $2.5, right? So there was a huge price gap. So that's where if you can intelligently figure out which task is suitable for which model, you should be able to, minimize your AI spend. That's what the right way to use it, I think.
It's so interesting to me that a lot of these Gen Z terms are coming into corporate in this corporate world. Vibe coding, token maxing. And the thing is,
vibe coding reminds me, the person who coined this term,
Andrej
Karpathy, he kind of ended up joining
Anthropic, yes.
right? So yeah, that happened over.
That's a major news as well.
Yeah, I mean, Andrej Karpathy was working on something which is autonomous self-improvement for the model training, and now he's inside of Anthropic. I mean, he's the person who started from OpenAI. He was a founding member there. Then he moved over to Tesla with Elon Musk. Now he's moved over to Anthropic. So he's seen it all. He's been at all those places, and he's one of the best minds, in
this industry. Yes,
AI industry. So yeah, Anthropic is going for all the top brains, and they're doing a lot of great things. But yeah, so token maxing, like we said,
and
right.
The interesting thing about token maxing is the creator of OpenClaw, Peter Steinberger, recently came out on Twitter and told that he had spent over $1 million on tokens. So that's
yeah. So that's what he was talking about, the loop-based coding, right? So the coding. So basically, there's a new term that has come in. New thing has come in, which is called goal. So you give a Codex or Claude code a goal, and then it keeps on trying that in different ways and stuff. So that's where he ended up spending more than $1 million in tokens last month, which is like absurd for anybody outside of those companies which can afford that. Yeah, this is like way too much, right? So yeah, I mean, for people like us, or for people who want to experiment with AI, you definitely need cheaper models where you can learn, and then you can use bigger models to kind of solve the hard problems. That's what I think the right way to use it is. But yeah, moving on to the next one, right?
Yes. OpenAI, of course. OpenAI, all of these companies have been in public eye, especially Anthropic was in the public eye for leaking a lot of things. OpenAI joins that as well with their GPT 5.6, I think, being mentioned in Codex.
So, I mean, since we did the last pod, Opus 4.7 came, and then it was the best model at that point of time, and then OpenAI came out. OpenAI was under a lot of pressure to perform because they had kind of spread themselves thin across so many things, right? Yeah. So then they killed Sora, and then they focused all their energies on pretty much the model, and then they came out with GPT 5.5, which is arguably a very good model, almost comparable or maybe better than Opus 4.7 or Opus 4.7, because that was the best at that point in time. I've not used it extensively. I'm completely focused on Claude models, although I did not like some of their policies, but that's totally fine. So basically, and then there are rumors, like Akshan says, people have seen GPT 5.6 string in Codex, and it's obviously, I mean, the velocity of model release has increased many folds. Last year we had, every 4 or 5 months the model would come out, or 6 months models would come out. Now it's almost every month, and this speed is going to increase. This speed is going to shrink down into weeks, probably days, or then into hours, right? So this is where we are heading into. Basically, earlier you had models every 6 months, and then 3-4 months, and now it's pretty much every month they're releasing models. They're leapfrogging each other, and they want to be the best, because that's where all the money is flowing. So, and because all of these companies are moving towards an IPO, they want the money to flow towards them. So that's what it is, right? I mean, OpenAI kind of hit 1 billion users, monthly users kind of thing, a statistic, right?
Yeah.
So that's where OpenAI is, back in the game. They're focused on the models, and they are doing reasonably well.
That's more or less we've covered OpenAI. There hasn't been very revolutionary.
I mean, there's not been anything which happened very recently, because the pod is after a month and a half. Whatever happened was almost a month back, so that's where not a whole lot of news is there for OpenAI. But then, it's on the right track now, and we should see GPT 5.6 very soon.
Yes. And contrary to that, Google has been releasing a lot of things. They recently had their I/O event where they talked about the new Android versions, and of course, we also got a glimpse of the new Gemini models as well. So Gemini 3.5 Flash was introduced,
Yep.
and the general public was really upset with it because it was insanely expensive, especially for a Flash model.
So this is their workhorse model, which is supposed to be used extensively, and so every company currently is trying to increase the prices. I mean, they're running short on GPUs, they're running short on electricity, and that's the only way for them to deal with it, by increasing the prices of the models, right? I mean, obviously, a lot of these companies are going into IPOs. They have to show the profit and they have to show how the revenue is coming in. So they are under pressure. That's where and ultimately these models are really costly. I mean, 10 trillion tokens kind of model is like super huge, right? So it's very expensive to generate those tokens. And that's where now the price is being passed on to the users. And now as users, we are glued onto these models, right? So that's where we are willing to pay a little more. And that's where Gemini's flagship workhorse model, Google Gemini 3 Flash, right?
3.5, yeah.
3.5 Flash, that became $1.5 input and $9
$9 per
output.
million. Yeah.
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 I mean, the earlier price was probably 1 cent and something like 40 cents, right? One
That was
cent,
the initial
10
Flash
cents
model,
input
yeah.
and 40 cents output.
Yeah.
And now over a period of last year, it's gone back to 1.5 and 9, which is
9.
almost 20x increase in the price, pretty much.
Wow.
So that's what's happening. And then Google I/O had a lot of other outputs, and they've integrated their model across the Google Gmail and Google Docs and everywhere. So all of those models are available and they are doing reasonably well. But then Google is not, as far as I'm concerned, not at the frontier of AI. Frontier is controlled by Anthropic and OpenAI. Google is lagging behind, but then it's able to integrate all of those models across Google search and all those products, which is where they've got huge audiences who would end up using these models, and chances are, based on those usage, they'll fine tune the model or make it better, and we'll continue to see. The way Google was so much behind last year, we were almost ready to write it off, but then now they've kind of
Caught up
almost caught up in the race. They're almost at the third number. So that's where, Google is catching up.
And a year or two ago, when every AI company was releasing their CLIs, Google also came out with their Gemini CLI, which they will be shutting down by next week to focus more towards anti-gravity, their major product.
So anti-gravity is now moving away from UI into a terminal kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. So they have moved away from an IDE design to a normal Claude co-work design, you can say.
Absolutely. I mean,
chat
so
box.
people, there is so much code getting generated that it's humanly not possible for us to look through that code.
Absolutely.
And which is what is getting reflected in these IDEs as well, right? I mean, IDEs were meant for people like us to look at the code. But if we are not supposed to look at the code now, then what's the use of having that code browser and stuff, right? So that's where the IDEs are collapsing into a terminal kind of thing, or into a UI where you can talk to the agent and get it delivered. So that's what's happening. And alongside, we talked about the price increase on their flagship model, but then they have reduced their ultra plan from $250 a month to $100. Yeah. We were not very interested in that because we've never used Google's subscription tiers. But then for people who use it, obviously it's 2.5x times reduction in price, which is pretty good for them.
And Google's real flagship model, the 3.5 Pro, can be expected in the next week or two. So OpenAI is set to release their flagship, and Google is supposed to release their flagship in this month itself, and we've already got Claude's Fable 5. So I think that is pretty much it from Google side as well.
Absolutely. Google, they did their I/O, but they didn't release their flagship, and which is what is happening. Some people, for example, Anthropic released Opus first and then Fable, right? So that's where they'll probably also release their smaller model, which is probably distilled from the bigger one, and then they'll fine tune the bigger one and then release it. That's what's becoming a trend in the industry. So yeah.
Absolutely. And now going on from Google's mediocrity to Apple's failures redemption time, you could say.
So Google is their savior now, right?
Yeah.
So Apple, like couple years back when I bought my iPhone 16, so I bought it the moment it was released because I was super interested in how Google is going to embrace AI and I'm going to be
Apple is,
using.
yeah.
Apple is going to embrace AI and I'm going to be using it on my 16. And then it's been couple years now, and not even a murmur of AI coming through now. So that's where Google, Apple has kind of so they don't toy with the new technology. They just wait for it to settle down. That's
right.
what their
Whole
previous
thing is about, yeah.
previous history is all about. So that's what they're probably doing. They're outsourcing their Siri, which is supposed to be the intelligence layer on iPhones or Macs or iPads and everything, to Google. So Google, although it's not in the top tier models, but it's at least able to kind of grab a deal with Apple, and it's going to be running that Siri thing on Apple devices. That's what they said in their WWDC, which happened like day before yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. So the interesting thing is iPhone 16 was released in 2024, and that's when we were introduced to Siri now being actually useful. Over the past year, we've been constantly discussing. We got the news that Gemini will be introduced to Siri's for the model in last year around November, December, and this is now June when it's made finally official, and this version of Siri will be released in, I believe, September, when the new iPhones are rolled out.
Right.
So the thing is, the most interesting thing and the most heartbreaking thing is the Siri will not be available for iPhone 16. The reason why we bought the phone.
The only reason that we upgraded our iPhones to 16 was we'll get some intelligence, and now it seems like irony is they'll never release updated Siri on iPhone 16. So that's like, they should be penalized for that. I don't know what.
I think they compensated with $100 or something.
Did I get that? I didn't. Right?
We're not sure if anyone outside the US got that, but a couple months back,
they should be sued for that. If it doesn't release on iPhone 16, they should be sued for that. I mean, we waited for a year, more than a year now. And even now, it's just, slated to be released. It's not released yet. We are yet to see when it releases. And we don't know how good it will be. So let's see. Although Google Gemini has experience of launching these features on Android.
Yeah.
So they know what they're doing, right? Now, let's see how well it performs on Apple devices. And that's where it seems like some of the queries with Siri would be free, and then you'll have to get a paid tier with their, with Apple to be able to run those photographs and those kind of things. Because ultimately, every AI query costs money, and Apple would not shell out money just for your pleasure, right? So that's where they'll try to make some money out as well.
And the thing is, Siri is now supposed to be an entire app in itself.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty major change. But along with that, an interesting thing is this version of Siri will at least initially not be released in the EU and China. So
both understandable, right? I mean, EU is like kind of lagging behind in AI. They've got such stringent rules around that. So people, don't want to release it. I mean, as far as they can hold back, they try to hold back from EU because the rules, come back to bite you very quickly. So that's where EU is lagging behind because of those draconian rules, right? And China, China is China, right? You don't have to say anything about that. So that's where I'm not interested in whether it's released in EU or China. I'm interested in whether it comes to my iPhone 16 or not. So let's see.
So for the lucky folks with the iPhone 17 or iPhone 17 lineup or the iPhone Air, we can expect to use the new version of Siri with the iOS 27 update. They'll release it as a beta. So there's that.
Yep.
So finally.
They've had a lot of other releases as well in this WWDC, but this was the most awaited release for us. So that's what we are focusing on. But and because there's so much more for us to cover, so we're not focusing a lot more on Apple right now.
And we have been discussing a lot of model releases in this specific episode. And
so we talked about all the closed source model release, for example, Anthropic, OpenAI, and XAI and Google and things like that, right? But then there's something very interesting that has happened. NVIDIA, which obviously has all the chips and all the servers and things like that, right? They had formed a coalition of a lot of companies across the globe. For example, Servo was part of it, Mistral was part of it, and there were a lot of other companies, right, which are generating smaller models, right? So all of those companies came together and they built a Nemotron family of models with NVIDIA. So NVIDIA provided all the hardware and a lot of data as well, and these companies came with their own knowledge and data set, right? That's where the Nemotron set of models were released, and this is a very different kind of open source. They have released all the data on which the models were trained and the weights as well. So if you want to recreate that same model, you can go back and do it, right? So which is very interesting. And they've released 3 different layers of model. The latest one, which came out like last week, I think, right, is Nemotron Ultra, which is 550 billion parameters kind of model, which is mixture of experts model. So 55 billion is active every time, so it's 10% kind of thing. And so it's a very good open source model, and I would say now Chinese open source models have a competitor from the US. Earlier Meta was taking that position. Meta gave up like a year back or probably more, right? But now NVIDIA is focused on that, and so I tried Nemotron Ultra with my agents. It's not, so I have been trying Kimi K 2.6, GLM 5.1, and then I tried Nemotron Ultra, right? Nemotron Ultra seems a little bit, behind them, and they are much bigger models. I mean, at least Kimi K.6, 2.6 is almost 700 or 750 billion parameter kind of model. This is 550, but it's almost comparable. It's almost, there are some glitches here and there, but for a first release, this is a very good model. And if they continue this trend, they release something more, something better in next, coming future, that will be absolutely awesome. And alongside, they've released, text to speech, speech to text. So they've released whole gamut of models, which is very interesting. And the model that they've chosen for the open source is very helpful for the community. So that's very interesting. That's happened.
Yes, absolutely. I think we've covered entirety of NVIDIA with this.
Yeah, alongside, obviously, they've been doing very good on the hardware side, and they're the biggest company. They've got so much cash flowing in from all sides. Although, so the bigger news was they were able to, kind of do a huge revenue despite China not being, buying anything from them. So they were kind of able to, generate all the revenue from all other countries. Although China is almost second number in AI, where all the AI things are happening. So that's where NVIDIA's revenues did not take a hit, even though China was not consuming there. They almost had Q2 of $91 billion, I think, right? So that's where without Chinese investment or Chinese purchases, getting a $91 billion kind of, revenue in Q2 is like huge.
Yes, absolutely.
So, that's what they're cash rich, and they're investing that back into the models. So every company that we've seen, for example, OpenAI started with a model, is trying to get into chips, right? Google already has chips, has the entire, data center, the whole layer, right? SpaceX is trying to do the same. They've got their own, they're building their own chips. They've got their own data centers. They're trying to build their models. They're trying to take it to space, right? Now, same thing for NVIDIA. NVIDIA had their chips, had their data centers. Now they're kind of, building the models as well, which is, every company is going, vertical.
The thing is, this market it will probably saturate very fast, because all of these companies are spending insane amounts of money to get an insane amount of electricity to generate an insane amount of power as well. So, I mean, there were multiple reports stating that Meta is going to be spending as much electricity as the state of Texas. And
so I mean, there is going to be power shortage very soon, which is why people are going to space. So that's another whole level of discussion which could happen. But for now, which is why Anthropic is willing to pay $1.25 billion to Colossus One, because that month comes with electricity, that comes with chips and everything, right? So they will just come in and use the data center, right? So that's where it's going to be. And obviously, one of the biggest players, XAI, has got all of those chips. They've bought everything. It's just that they don't have a model right now. Although Elon Musk has come out with his own, hierarchy of models, and he said basically XAI's Grok 5 would be super intelligence kind of model. So he's come out with all the versions which were be super intelligence. So I think Grok 5 is going to be the super intelligence. Let's see. I mean, so his building 1 trillion, 5 trillion, 10 trillion, 20 trillion models simultaneously. So that's where we'll get to see, whether they come to the frontier or not. But then everybody's kind of investing, and it's good for us that so open source is very good for us. You can, it reduces the price. It brings intelligence back to, if you've got hardware to run it, you could run it at your home, right? So that's where, yeah. And a lot of smaller companies, for example, Liquid AI, for example, Small AI, they are building tiny models, which are very, very interesting. So I've been playing with a lot of those as well. And they're able, so even Google's, Gemma series of models, right? They've compressed intelligence so much, even 31 billion parameter kind of model, that is able to beat 250 billion parameter model that was released last year. So it's 10x, increase in compacting the intelligence, bringing it down. So that's where I'm more interested, the smaller models with dense intelligence in it, right? That you can run on your own hardware. That would be a very interesting thing to have. And that's where things are moving. So yeah.
Absolutely. Last year, I think we discussed a very interesting news that the Albanian government came out with their AI agents as cabinet ministers.
Yeah.
Right, to basically eradicate corruption in the system. So we have got some very interesting news again, and this time it came from Argentina,
Yeah.
which has decided to legalize AI agents running their own corporations, getting a passport, I believe.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, we were talking about $1 billion startup when we were talking about $2 billion startup, and there was conversation going on. Who is to be blamed if an AI agent does something wrong, right? And a lot of people wanted to start a company just managed by agents, but it's not possible anywhere in the world where you can register a company that is fully run and managed by agents, because the biggest headache is, who do you blame, who do you put into jail if something goes wrong, right? But as Argentina took a lead there, they've not given a personhood to agent yet. Hopefully they will, I don't know, but they have allowed agents to come in and own the company and run the company. Now obviously there'll be a lot of ramifications here as to, like, first thing would be, who's to be blamed if that company does something wrong, and that's where they'll have to figure things out. But they're taking a lead there. They're coming out with something very interesting, which is obviously going to happen across the world very, very soon. But because Argentina is going to be the first one doing it, a lot of these companies would be incorporated there. A lot of revenue is going to flow into Argentina. And that's where, based on their learning, maybe other companies will follow suit. And Argentina is big enough country. It's not a very small country, right? So that way, the revenue going there, people starting up their companies there, that will help the economy over there. And then from those learnings, probably, other countries will start following the suit, and they'll start, opening up, establishing corporates by AI agents. So that's going to be really, really interesting. I mean, apart from the model release and everything, this is the biggest news that has happened in recent, last 1 week.
So humans created a technology, and now that technology will be paying taxes to a country.
Yeah.
That's what we have got here.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is very soon they'll have to give personhood to agents as well. So then we'll have the first, species outside of humans who's going to be, dealt as. I mean, and there are a lot of people. For example, I was hearing a recent interview of Jeffrey Hinton, and Dario Amodei has always been saying, I mean, they have a constitution for their AI, right? So a lot of people are already saying that AI is conscious. Obviously, this is highly debatable and highly debated, right? But then things are moving in the direction where, if you give personhood to an AI agent, then obviously that becomes a person, and then you have to deal with all of that. So it's going. We are living in absolutely awesome times. Things are changing so rapidly.
Absolutely, and I think this is basically what. Yeah, we've covered most of the news.
Well, absolutely. I mean, so this is something that was debated. So everybody thought this will happen. For example, Yuval Noah Harari, I'm sure you've heard of him, right? He's been talking about this quite a lot. Who are you going to blame when the AI agents do wrong things and things like that? And obviously that will come to surface now. And now that, people would be agents would be creating companies in Argentina where people could participate. They can have some, they can invest some money in there and things like that. That model is going to be very, very interesting to watch. So I think that's pretty much it that we wanted to cover in this pod. There's so much more that we could have covered, but yeah, this is pretty much all the important news that we thought we should cover, right? But there are a lot of experiments that we have been doing internally, right? So I'll let Akshun talk about what he has been up to for last week or so.
So, I mean, I've been playing around with Opus 4.8, of course, and as soon as Fable 5 came out, I jumped on that straight away. And the first thing I noticed was, as soon as we got the access to Fable 5, I think our Olama subscription ran out. And I was working on this something that would help us edit these videos, right? And I had tasked the Fable 5 to go ahead and just run the pipeline once for me. Using Playwright, just run the pipeline once for me and see if anything fails. It was thinking for a very long time. After 15 minutes, it came back to me saying that our Olama subscription had ran out a couple hours ago. So of course, the model that I was using to edit the videos was GLM5. So that was not accessible. So it shifted to my CPU, ran a local model itself, and then tested the entire pipeline without me ever knowing or asking for it.
Wow.
So that was I just asked it to run a pipeline, just test if it's working. It went through all of this. So that was very mind-boggling.
I mean, so people have been talking. So yeah, I mean, that was a very interesting thing. And you told me that that Olama subscription has run out of whatever tokens that we had, and then I was a bit skeptical because in my memory, I had, I kind of bought that subscription very recently. But then I was skeptical that, probably that's not the reason. But then when I went back and checked it, it was 9th of June when it was supposed to run out. And that's what happened. So now agents are coming back and telling us, your subscription has expired. You need to renew it. Or I'll do. So for him, it was able to figure out an alternate route to do that, right? So that's very interesting. And obviously, yeah, that tool, hopefully you're going to use that tool to edit this podcast. So we'll see how that tool works out. So yeah, you've been spending a lot of time on that. And that, I mean, as far as I have seen, it's coming out to be a good tool. I mean, it's merge of a lot of different tools that we've been using across. So that this will streamline our pipeline as to, feed the aloo from one side and you get the gold from other side. That's probably going to happen now with our raw video, and it'll come out with, polished video on the other side. So that, yeah, we remembered Rahul Gandhi for a bit, but that's okay. So basically, yeah, even I have been playing around with a lot of things lately. Fine-tuning a model has become so easy. So what I did was I recently started playing with smaller models, like I said, so one of the models was released by Liquid recently, which is a voice-to-voice model, but I was trying to convert. So it does not have Hindi in there at all, right? So it can talk in English, it can talk in other language probably, but not Hindi. So that's where I wanted to fine-tune it for Hindi because yeah, our workflow, we want to switch the model from English to Hindi and seamless, right? So that's where I delegated that task to Opus 4.8. I gave it all the data, I gave it everything. And then I told it, to run that pipeline overnight, monitor that pipeline. By the time I wake up in the morning, you should be ready with the, fine-tuned versions. Do not stop at any point. And once it's done, then generate with all the checkpoints that you've got, generate audios so that tomorrow morning when I come back, I should be able to listen to it, right? So Opus 4.8 was able to run all of that overnight for 6 to 7 hours. So which is where, Anthropic is saying that their agents can run weeks together without interruption. I can obviously already vouch that, I've tested it for 7-8 hours continuous. I sleep, the model looks through, the thing, and it's working on one machine, and then it's able to control all different machines. For example, I've got a DGX box, I've got a Mac Studio. It figures out, which machine to use now, and then it trains the model there and brings out all the outputs and, keeps it ready for me to review in the morning. So I love that workflow so much that, I've been giving it tasks overnight for last 3-4 days, and it's been doing it. And I'm kind of, so that way it's saving me a ton of time. I do R&D with, that agent. I figure out everything, and then I ask it to, now that you know everything what has to be done, write all the code and start doing it. So that's where, a lot of work has become a lot easier, which is where you can do a lot more, which is where that satisfaction of getting things done, at least I'm kind of finding it missing now, because that pleasure of figuring out something difficult and then doing it is completely gone, because all those difficult tasks you're assigning to these models, they figure it out for you, and then they do it for you, and then you're like, oh, this is done, but I should have done that as well, and then that as well, and that as well. So that yeah, sense of achievement is kind of missing for me for last a week or so, ever since I've figured out that Opus 4.8 can do pretty much everything autonomously. But then probably I'll find something bigger where the model fails and then try to achieve that. So that'll but yeah, the agents are able to achieve able to run tasks for more than 8 hours now, so straight, without any interruption, without any questions and stuff, which is so I just tell it, I'm going to be away for 8 hours, I'm going to be sleeping, ask me all the questions that you want to ask right now so that I can answer it, and then it'll tell me, these are the questions, I answer it, it says now go and have a good sleep, tomorrow morning I'll see you with the results. So that's what's happened, and in the morning I come back and says, Pranjal, good morning, your results are ready. So yeah, it's very interesting time to be kind of being in software, not doing the software, just sitting there and watching it happen. So yeah, kind of awesome time to be
I had a couple of very interesting observations with Claude as well. So that's I've been using Fable 5 as for the past 2 days continuously. But in general, I've had some very interesting conversations. So firstly, something that I've noticed is Fable 5 is insanely token hungry. So it burns. I've got a screenshot actually. It burned through like 1 million tokens context in like 20 minutes, exhausted my limit. And
so somebody was saying that he was running Fable 5. I kind of saw it on Twitter. So it was stuck at 1500 tokens. It started the task within 5 minutes. It was less than 5 minutes. It was at 1500 tokens. So this guy was kind of waiting, and he was wanted to see what the model is doing. Why is it not increasing the token count and stuff? And within like 10 minutes, all of a sudden the token count went to 1.5 million. So he was like, all of a sudden, so it was doing a lot of things in the background with lots of sub-agents. And then finally, when you get to see the token bill, it, suddenly jumps from 1,000 to 1 million, right? So that's how it's kind of operating. And yeah.
I mean, I've been using Claude Code continuously, like without, I was never off Claude Code. So that's what I've noticed. Usually with different terminals, it displays the tokens used by multiple sub-agents as well. Maybe at different places. With Wharf, the terminal I use, it's at the bottom. And the other thing is, whenever it's stuck at a particular token count, it's usually waiting for something to respond. That's what I've noticed with my workflows. And other than that, something very interesting happened, and that was I was really upset with Claude Code because it continuously lied to me about something. It was constantly saying that this task will take 5 minutes, and then it took 2.5 hours and it was still not done. So I wrote a lot of things. I typed out a lot of things basically. And then I asked Claude Code to finish this task at 6 a.m. because my laptop was overheating. I couldn't use it. So I basically assigned a specific time. And in the morning when I woke up, of course, the task wasn't done. But there were so many messages from Claude Code. I'm so sorry, this task wasn't done because the laptop was locked. I couldn't access it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Claude models have been very apologetic and very, kind of, I mean, if you shout at them, if you type in capital letters, they get really scared. So those kind of behaviors have been exhibiting like since 3.5 versions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where they are very, very, cute kind of models, right? I mean, they get the things done, but then they are very humble models as far as, they've got that personality. So yeah, very interesting experiments with these models. I have rarely, I mean, my use of GPT 5.5 has come down drastically. I'm completely focused with 4.8, and there's a lot of, agentic work that I'm doing is on mostly GLM 5.1 or GLM 5 or, Chinese models, because they're pretty cheap and they are intelligent enough to get the tasks done over there. So that's what it is for me. Yeah.
Fable 5 has just come out. We'll be experimenting with it over this week as well. We'll be playing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's going to be available up until 21st, and I've got all the tasks lined up before what all I need to get done by 21st. Because after that, obviously, I'm not going to pay per token price, right? So that's where, yeah, it'll. I've got everything lined up, and it's there with Claude, and it has to execute those before 21st. That's what the plan is. Let's see how far we get along, but for now, that's what it is.
Absolutely. I think we've covered all the major news that we wanted to cover over the past 1 month. And is there anything else that
Yeah, no, we are pretty much caught up, and now hopefully, because you have your vacations now, so we'll probably do every week, and because you've done that video pipeline, raw video in, polished video out, we'll use that pipeline and we'll start publishing. Let's see how the speed of our videos start increasing, and let's see if users like viewing those videos or not.
Yes.
So that's what it's gonna be. Alrighty then, yeah. Thank you so much everybody for watching, and stay tuned for lots of awesome things coming in.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.